Martin Ødegaard has been a big talking point this season for Arsenal. While there is a massive disagreement in the fan base whether he's been good or bad, in this video we're going to look at exactly what has been going wrong and right for him this season and why maybe a role change will be the answer to make him back to his best. So let's get into it. This is one of them videos which is going to be a sensitive topic for some people. Martin Ødegaard of course is the captain, I think loved internally between everyone, and a lot of people want to discard that there is any problems with him. Now, I'm not saying in this video that Ødegaard should be dropped or shouldn't be in the team moving forward, but I want to find out the reasons he isn't quite succeeding to the best that I know he can do, and we all know he can, like a couple of years ago, and how we can try and make the ways happen so he can find that sort of form again. Now, first of all, let's talk about what Ødegaard is actually elite at, and that number one is pressing. I know sometimes it gets disregarded that anyone can press, but realistically in football they can't, and Martin Ødegaard not only is the captain and the leader out on the pitch, but he is the person that understands how to press the best in our team. There is a reason why he is the main presser. He is the one that will be intent within pressing when he wants and hold off in other times, because he has a really good gaugement of whether he needs to go or not, or whether the team should press up. This is very important in the triggers for the press, because if we have one player that just understands this tactical level, it not only preserves a lot of health and we don't have to press every 3 seconds of the game, it allows our team to work off of a leader who is directing people in the right area. Now, I have heard it be said that Ødegaard is the director, he's that person that pushes people towards the direction you want to go in, but he isn't the person that is going to make them tackles under the press most likely. Now, if it comes a little bit deeper and he runs back, he can sort of nick a ball in and get through, but it is not really that likely that he's that person that does that. He isn't very good tackler, he isn't very physical, he is more of that controlled technical person, so it makes sense him trying to push other people into that direction, which is good, but I think in the future you would want him to have a little bit of more intent on the ball, but that's not realistically the end of the world. The other thing that he is world class at is progressing the ball. If you look at his progressive passes throughout the last couple of years, he is basically on course this year to do the same as he has before, and anywhere on the pitch he is brilliant at progressing, but I think most importantly in them central to defensive areas. When a team is in a low block or mid block and they're kind of sitting off Arsenal a little bit, he is the perfect player to come deeper, break that block and be able to find a pass through or some good movement. It is definitely one of his big strengths. And another one is when Arsenal play against teams in low blocks or teams that are really boxed into their own half, that is when Ødegaard can really thrive. In tight areas he is brilliant with little dribbling skills and obviously his brilliant passing, and he has a good awareness and some good relationships with people like Ben White, Saka, where he can find balls really well in behind. Arsenal have really seen Ødegaard's assists and passes into the final third blow up when we get them sort of pressure, which we saw at the end of last season when Arsenal were just absolutely dismantling teams. Now that is where I think the first problem comes with Ødegaard right now in the team. Arsenal are not really able to completely have control in a lot of games this season compared to last year. Obviously this is down to the injury problems that Arsenal have had, and even recently when most of the squad is in there, we have been able to get a decent amount of control, but teams still want to push up and try and press us. Even Leicester didn't really sit back into a lower, deeper block until later on in the game where you saw Ødegaard really flourish. This is meaning that Ødegaard is often just kind of stuck in his position. There's a lot of times as well with the inclusion of Partey and Timber now coming up from right back that he doesn't actually move a lot into that right half channel. He is kind of sat there, someone's marking him and he cannot really get around them, so he isn't really that effective. People know that he is the main person that is going to create for that Arsenal side now, because obviously Saka's injured, that right wing spot is gone, and Timber is a little bit conservative with his deeper passes, which do make Ødegaard on himself a bit limited because they're going to stop the passes towards him, which inherently isn't really his fault. That is just sort of how the team has developed with the injuries. This is why I think you've seen a big decrease in his shot creating actions this year. From last year he was getting around 6.4 a game and he's only at about 4.5 this season, which is a massive decrease. And although he still has a really good identification of when to make these passes, that's why his expected assist is still at 0.2, which isn't obviously a lot, but that is around about what you expect from Ødegaard. It hasn't decreased too much from last season. Now, one of the ways that Arsenal have tried to counter this is by actually using the wingers and using other players to come deeper at times throughout the season where Ødegaard can get into the box. We've seen people like Havertz come deeper, put the ball through to the wingers to get him behind, and Ødegaard kind of sitting there. That has seen him be able to get shots closer to the goal than he did last season. Now, I know there's been criticisms of when Ødegaard shoots quite a lot in the past, but actually this season he has decreased his shots quite a lot because of the fact he has to come deeper. And when his shots on target per 90 are a 0.46, which is his worst it's ever been at Arsenal, it doesn't really matter how many shots he's getting closer towards the goal because he's not getting enough to make an impact and ultimately isn't making an impact with these shots overall. Now, one of his weaknesses in them shot selections is the fact he is so one-footed. There was moments where he could just shoot on his right foot, but he has to cut in and turn around to get it onto that left foot to feel comfortable, which makes it predictable. The shots aren't very good anymore and it becomes an easy save. Not only is he having less shots on target than before, but he's also not scoring as much and getting into great positions. And out of his 24 shots this season, he's only scored 1 from open play, which just frankly is not good enough, which was that tap in against Man City where he arguably couldn't miss. Now, his goals aren't a main point about Ødegaard, but you would always want a creative or attacking midfielder to sort of have enough shots in a game. Now, his goals have never been a major part about Ødegaard, but he has obviously scored loads of goals before. That season 2 years ago, he was incredible. Now, this season, he is at a 0.13 goals per 90, and last year it was at a 0.23, so he's decreased even more from the 0.4 the year before, which is actually his worst he's had since he joined Arsenal yet again. So he's not getting many shots. The shots that he's having are in good positions, but he's too one-footed, and he's ended up missing a lot of big chances, which I think is the reason why Arsenal have tried to let him shoot a lot less in the last couple of months. And this, I think, becomes one of the main reasons that this whole area is a major problem for Ødegaard right now. When he's just outside the box, when he's inside the box, he is just not being very effective. Against Leicester in that first half, I thought specifically he was kind of poor. If you watch compilations, they're going to take out all of the missed passes he does, so it's going to make him look a little bit more beneficial. But his timings were off. He is supposed to be that technical level at the top of our team. He was making chipped balls over to Trossard, which one made no sense, but two weren't good enough, and Trossard couldn't really bring them down at any points. He was late on some of the passes and people were consistently offside. Okay, yeah, it's their fault as well, but it's also on him. I think the timings were off, and his passes in these sort of attacking areas have just not been good enough. Now, maybe Saka not being there is a sort of impact. He doesn't have that familiarity, but it's making Arsenal so predictable when we get into them positions, and his passes aren't just good enough for half of the time, so it isn't really worth it. Now, I think when you talk about that sort of just outside the box area, that half channel and inside the box, Ødegaard is the man that you think about, but I am starting to think that he shouldn't play that role. I've always kind of said that Ødegaard is more of an advanced 8 than a 10 because he isn't really that a natural creator. He's not someone that is going to consistently create chances for you like a Bruno Fernandes, like a Kevin De Bruyne, but he is someone that is a better progressor with the ball and can find them nifty balls from deep behind the defence, which is something that creatively makes him very a 10. Something that I really want to see Ødegaard do, and I think everyone has been saying it for so long, is just move over to the left a little bit more, make him a little bit more fluid in position, which inherently open the team a lot more right now. The system that we currently have with obviously Partey, who you would think might be Zubimendi next year, Rice on the left centre mid and Ødegaard on the right centre mid, might need to be changed. I genuinely think a double pivot of Rice and Zubimendi, or Partey of course now, where Rice does go up the field a few times, but we allow Ødegaard to sort of be that central attacker midfielder who can pick and choose where he goes. I think this is clearer than ever in that game against Leicester, when the game was becoming a little bit more open and Leicester was sitting back a little bit more at the end of the game. Ødegaard started moving into that left-sided channel a lot more. He started being able to be there for progression, which allowed Rice to get into the box and not worry about having to pass it off all the time, and allow people like Calafiori and Trossard to work brilliantly off him on that left side. Ødegaard is a brilliant player on his left foot and can make incredible passes into the back line. There was multiple times over the last couple of years we have seen him go into that left-hand side and shift balls into that half channel where we've scored. It's just something that Arsenal need to do more, because Ødegaard in that way. I know he's only left-footed and Arteta probably doesn't like the angles, but he is still very encouraging there, and I still think that opens up the team a lot more and makes us a little bit more unpredictable. Not only does that make that left-hand side a little bit more secure, it makes the right-hand side a lot better. The biggest criticism I think as well of Ødegaard over his time at Arsenal is that he blocks Saka. Now, I don't think he blocks Saka in a sense, because I think Saka is so good it doesn't really matter. He can go on the outside if he needs to. But obviously, yes, sometimes Saka will want that space a little bit more. He wants Ødegaard to drag players away from him so he gets more space, not bring players towards him being there to stand with the ball. That is kind of the same with Nwaneri. Now, he had a brilliant game in the whole of the Leicester game. He was the only real attacker trying to do anything for most of the game, but he got so much better in that last half an hour when Ødegaard moved over to the left. This meant that players could sort of fill into them gaps. It gave Nwaneri, sometimes he had a 2-on-1, but he was good enough to cut inside or go on the outside, and it just gave him that little bit of a half space where he didn't have to worry about Ødegaard doing the passes, where he could take control of the attack. We saw it with the brilliant cross that he did. We saw it with some of the shots that he did with the space he got on the break. And that is the best thing for him. I genuinely don't think, because him and Ødegaard operate that same half space in a very good fashion, that Ødegaard needs to be in that right half channel every 3 seconds if Nwaneri is playing on the right. Same could be said with Saka as well. Now, I've had complaints about Ødegaard, how he doesn't run in behind. There's a clip against Leicester where we are on the break and he just doesn't run in behind at all, and he just passes it and it ruins the attack. But ultimately, that isn't the player that Ødegaard is, and it's very unfair to criticise a player that has never been a running behind player. He is a ball to feet player for not doing that. That's just not how his mind's wired to, and realistically not why we signed him, and it's not his fault. Arteta needs to be using him in better ways. In my eyes, the best way to do it is make him the creative force around the team, not just on that right hand side but deeper as well. When we're struggling against mid blocks, he needs to come deeper and make them long passes, being that progressive player. That is where he is the best at. I know we have Partey and Rice who can do brilliant balls through, but I'd still prefer Ødegaard. He's definitely the best player in that position, and even this season when he's deeper, he has made some incredible passes through for our team. So I think we should just stick with that for the time coming. I think when it comes to that attacking third, we worry about the creative side of the team. Just let Nwaneri do it. Nwaneri is a creator heart and heart. He isn't this outside the box clinical finisher like Phil Foden. He can do that, but that's not the main part of his game. He's a creator. He can help progress the team. He can do brilliant crosses in. He can do them sort of passes Ødegaard can. And Ødegaard is probably that better, deeper passer right now. So play both of them. And arguably, if Saka does come back, you could play Ødegaard on the left at the start and Nwaneri on the right, which I wouldn't be against doing, but it is a bit gung-ho. You might have to play it in certain games against certain oppositions. Overall, I think Ødegaard this season hasn't been the best, but I don't think it's entirely his fault. I think yet again, when you see the role change in games against Leicester, he becomes a much better player. And his pressing is still there. He's still an incredible person on the press. He still works incredibly hard. He deserves to be the captain, and he has got a future in this team. I do think the Zubimendi side makes it a little bit messy, because I'm not sure if he's going to be that central creator, but maybe they're thinking about Nwaneri there already, and maybe Ødegaard can switch in and switch out with people like Rice in that midfield, but we'll have to see going forward. I do think it is definitely going to be a difficult period for Ødegaard, but I think that we're going to have to stick with him. He deserves the trust, I think, because of the seasons that he's had, and you can still see a lot of ability there. It's not like he's a completely lost cause. I know a lot of people aren't going to agree with this. A lot of people are going to think he's played brilliant, and he's played relatively well, I think, in some games, but in some games he has been quite poor. From a passing standpoint, I want him to be a little bit better passing, so maybe that means you have to move him deeper, give Nwaneri that space, but I'm sure this isn't that surprising. Ødegaard is still a great player, and I still believe in him, but this is just my little criticisms I have of him right now. Thank you guys for watching. Let me know what you think in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one.